Good evening. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for Monday, August 7th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of reflective silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Pileski, would you please lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Pileski. I would ask that the audience out there, if you have your cell phones, please put them on silent or off out of respect for the council meeting. Mr. Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sierra.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian. Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Got 10 present. Mr. Lippian has an excuse.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Do we have any public hearings? Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah,
Second.
second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, City Council members and residents. Just a couple updates here for you. Sorry about that. I got a little distracted. Happy August, first off. But a couple things I wanted to share. We announced on Friday that we're pulling together a summit on community violence on September 13th. And we're going to have it multiple sessions, one from 3 to 5 o'clock that's for community stakeholders, and then from 5 to 7 for our residents to come to the Elyria Public Library and learn more about this new model of trying to address community violence within the city of Elyria and the city of Lorain. And so we invite residents to come out on September 13th. Also, just in more the kind of activities upcoming, this Saturday is the last day for the pool, so we recommend folks take advantage of our pools. I want to give a special thank you to the Parks and Rec team. They've done an amazing job this summer, expanding the programs and just providing a quality service to the residents. So definitely want to give a thank you to the Parks and Recreation staff for all they've done this summer. They've been working really hard, not only on the square, but on the pools as well. Also, Broad Street has officially kicked off the redesign and resurfacing of Broad Street. So again, I know there's a lot of orange barrels around town, but to me that is a signal of progress, and appreciate City Council and NOACA and all the folks who helped us get the funding to be able to get that project started. A couple random announcements. Just want folks to save the date on their calendar. Next Thursday is the third Thursday. Hopefully we will have a real third Thursday that'll be outdoors and not rained out. Trick or Treat is going to be on Halloween Day, and it's going to be from 6 to 8. So I know there was a lot of discussion about, when it was going to be, so mark that. Pop's concert is going to happen on September 2nd, as always, the Saturday before Labor Day. We're doing a ribbon cutting. This is helping being spearheaded by Councilwoman Mitchell on September 9th. The unveiling of the West Park Trail and some of the improvements happening there. That's going to be on September 9th at 11 o'clock. We hope to see you at West Park on September 9th. That next week is the Apple Festival, that next weekend, so hope to see you at that. And then just in terms of school, we know on the 21st, a lot of students will be back in school, so just want to wish all our Elyria students a safe and enjoyable school year. Also, for our students who are going off to college, wishing them well as well. My oldest is in her second year of med school. I want to give her a shout out. Our two in the middle and elementary school. And for some parents, like me, are kind of relieved that they're going back to school, but some of us are anxious as well. So I just want to, again, thank all the teachers for what they do to help keep our students educated and safe. Let's do what we can as a city to support our students. If you're in need of back-to-school supplies, this Saturday, the Urban League is doing a block party right here downtown, so come out to that block party this weekend, this Saturday. And if you're an adult and you're considering re-enrolling in college, remember we created the Skill City Promise that if you're going to get an in-demand skill, the City of Elyria has a last dollar scholarship to help you get that skill certification. So just encourage folks to take advantage of the opportunities the city has, and that's my report. I'm here for any questions.
Very good. Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Safety Service Director Lundy.
Thank you, Council President. Summer, of course, flying by, and before you know it, we'll be raking leaves and unfortunately maybe pushing snow. But for now, though, I want to thank our crews in Building and Lands and our Streets Department for the job they're doing, trying to keep up as best as we can with cutting high grass around the city. Also want to thank our Streets Department and our Parks team for the cleanup of the downtown. You know, each week now they hit the downtown on bright and early Thursday mornings just before 6 o'clock to sweep and remove trash and debris. And this, of course, is a busy time for activities on the square. We want to make sure the downtown and the square are in tip-top shape. Unfortunately, reporting some vandalism that's been done to the fountain. We've discovered some paint stains in several places along the rim of the fountain. We're hoping to find a way to remove that paint, which looks like it's actually been unfortunately absorbed into the surface of the outer ring of the fountain. So we're hoping to find a way to remedy that. And this evening we want to send out our condolences to the family of Jamie Collins. Jamie's worked with us for 2 years, most recently as a filter pump operator at wastewater. He passed over the weekend, and we send our prayers out to his family. That completes my report.
Any questions for safety? Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President. Okay, so I got a few comments on our city maintenance. I called you a couple of weeks back about the overgrown weeds on our guardrails over on West River by High Point in the park. And you did go over there and you got that cleaned up. I drive down Ford Road and the same thing needs to be done, trimmed up and taken care of. We have in the city of Elyria a responsibility to not go over and take care of these issues just when somebody calls. I think there needs to be a regular maintenance program. When you go down Gulf Road, I don't know if they do it a couple times a year, they shut the road down and they trim around the sides. It looks great. We're going into a park, Metro Parks, and it looks terrible. We should have that pristine. Underneath the bridge, which is Route 2 over by the entrance to the park, I don't know whose responsibility is, if it's ours or if it's the Route 2 or what, but that needs to be cleaned up. So we got a nice area that we should be keeping really neat if we want people to come and appreciate our city. You got West River, the same thing. West River is an entrance to what's going to be a great thing when they figure out the Midway Mall area. We want people that are possibly investing in the city of Elyria, maybe investing in the mall, to come down that street and say, wow, this is really nice now down here, not that it's overgrown and what's the matter with your city that doesn't take care of it. The last is, which is deplorable, is if you won't walk under it, but the bridge that is over the route or Abbey Road right by 57 where the turnpike is. You got pigeons that are living up in the I-beams and they're doing their business up there. Their feathers are falling down on the sidewalk. There's garbage and trash and it's unbelievable. Nobody would want to walk through that. And now you probably have kids that are riding their bikes to go to the park and they have to go through that. The disease, first off. I don't know why that has not been on a maintenance program, something like that. I feel it's our responsibility. We tell people they need to cut their grass. We need to do a better job at just taking care of our own. And I'm just giving you examples in the fourth ward. I'm sure if anybody looked at their ward, they would have a lot of things that we need to keep up. That's our duty. We have an expense that we have to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Council Pres, to Councilman Oswald. Thank you for sharing that sentiment. I think, I totally agree with you. A part of what, you mentioned a number of things, the underpasses under the bridges, the high grass or wild grass on various roads. And in many of these cases, it is in our property. But I think similar to what we do with people's private property, when grass is high, we cut it and then we charge them. And I think we should take a similar stance with the railroad and with any other public entity. If they're not maintaining it, we should go ahead and cut it and send them the bill for cutting it. So I'm with you 100%. Just when we cross that bridge, no pun intended, and we get maybe pushback, I hope that we have that support from you that when we go ahead and do it. All right. And a couple updates on that. I don't know if you've announced this yet, but we did get the blessing from the railroad company to be able to do the painting on the underpass. So got to give Director Lundy a shout out for the negotiation with the railroad company. So we are going to be able to improve those underpasses. They had some strict restrictions on touching their structure, but we're going to go as far up to that line as we can to make as much change as we can without upsetting that agreement. But I want to give Director Lundy a shout out for that negotiation with the railroad company. Yep, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lundy? Mr. Serra?
Through you, Mr. President, mentioning the railroads, I noticed a couple of weeks back, there was people, I think, from the railroad inspecting underneath the underpasses. Any idea what is coming up from that or what that was all about?
Yeah, no, I haven't received a direct report back. I don't know if the city engineer received a report back from the railroad. I know they were checking on things and doing whatever they consider to be their inspection. Obviously, they don't inspect on a regular basis, as I think we know from the condition of the overpasses. And just so everybody understands, we are not allowed to touch the structure. We can only paint walls. And I told the railroad, and through our conversations, that we've got graffiti, it's got to get removed, it's got to get covered. And Kathy's been involved in those discussions, and we were able to at least get clearance that we can paint the walls, we cannot paint the structure above. There is a paperwork process that I've talked with Kathy about that we'll have to go through so that we can actually touch the structure. But we will be able to cover the walls. As far as the grass along the roadways, I will make sure that we've got a checklist there on some of these that were brought up. I know that, we get to Gulf Road there on a regular basis and some of the other roads. Ford Road, I'll make sure that we follow up on that. And, Abbey Road, that's Turnpike property. The city's had a struggle with them for a long, long time. So we'll engage them in conversation, find out what we're allowed to do in there, what we're not allowed to do in there. I think as long as that's been there, it's been a challenge for the city, but we'll certainly find out what we're able to work out with them to get that addressed.
Any other questions for Mr. Lundy? Mayor Whitfield?
Just one last comment on the underpasses is, we're going to make sure it gets addressed no matter what. I think we were committed to getting it done, and we just, again, would hope that you all support whatever pushback we get from taking care of our city, so we just hope we get your support when it's done. But yeah, we're gonna get it done. Yeah.
Thank you. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. President. On July 28th, I finished up the final touches on the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and submitted that report to the Government Finance Officers Association. The independent auditors are wrapping up, tying up a few loose ends with their audit. Once they are done, they will submit the report to the state auditor's office, and once they review it, they will release it. At that point in time, it'll be made public.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Pileski? Thank you. Law Director Deary?
Good evening, Council. Mr. President, I have no formal report this evening. As always, you know where to find me, and I am available for questions.
Any questions for the Law Director? Thank you. Leary Police Department, Chief Pelko.
Good evening. I just wanted to report that we did have our swearing-in ceremony. We combined it with the fire department the end of July. I think it was like the most people I've seen in this room. It was a great ceremony for both us and fire, and we were happy to share it with them. So congratulations again to Captain Welsh, Lieutenant Legas, and Sergeant Thacker on getting promoted. With that said, we had a couple narcotics investigations. Raids come in conclusion. Since we last met on July 19th, we raided 909 East Avenue. 5 people were arrested. We confiscated a bunch of drugs and drugs paraphernalia, and hopefully we can get that shut down for a while. Later in the month of July, we also concluded a drug investigation in Lorraine, where we ended up arresting Jesse Graham. We took almost $30,000 of firearm from him and some cocaine. So congratulations to our narcotics division on the successful investigations of that. Unfortunately, we did have a fatal accident in the early morning hours of July 27th. A man in his mid-30s ended up getting in a single-car accident on West River Road. He was DOA upon our arrival. We're still currently investigating that, but just wanted to report that out to you. So with that said, I'm happy to entertain any questions or anything from anybody.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief Pelko? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Leary Fire Department, Chief Pernesti. Anybody have any questions for Chief Pernesti? Assistant Safety Service Director Calvert.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. I'm very excited to share that we have, since last time I gave a report out, we secured the dates for the walking tours for the comprehensive land use plan. So that will kick off tomorrow at High Meadows at 1750 Ford at 6 p.m. So that is open to all of the community. We hope as many of you can make it as possible. We're going to be doing a walking audit. So there will be a form as we walk through the neighborhood. We'll start at the park. We'll go down Ford Road, see some of the residential area, and then turn over onto Midway Boulevard where we can see some of the commercial activity. And we will be looking for zoning-related items that we'd like to see changed, as well as land use, so that we can fix what we don't necessarily like now, but also reimagine what the future of that specific area looks like. And we're going to be doing that throughout the city through the month of August, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We will be doing these walking tours at different locations. It should be posted on the city's website, that we sent out flyers to anyone who lived within a half-mile radius of the areas we'll be doing the walking tours, and we've been promoting on social media. There was also a press release that went out last week. So we are excited about this. It's a great opportunity for the community to engage and partner with us on this effort. In addition, there are some mapping activities for the comprehensive land use plan as we take a look at several sites in the city, how we want to imagine those, reimagine those for future development. And there is an interactive activity at the Third Thursdays event. So our consultants, MS consultants, have been attending those with that interactive activity, but it is also online at ourelyria.com. So anyone who's not available to make it to Third Thursdays, and then also the walking tours. So there's an opportunity if you can't make it and you want to provide your feedback, you can download the walking tour audit form and provide your comments and feedback there. So we are excited about that to get that community engagement. We expect MS Consultants will be compiling all of the data that they've collected over these summer months in the last several months, and will be reporting out to City Council sometime next month. We'll be looking forward to that. If there's no questions on that, I do have another item I wanted to share.
Does anybody have any questions in regards to, what's that first? Okay. Carry on.
Thank you. So the other item I'm sharing, I'm going to pass these around. I apologize. It's a lot of paper, so I didn't make copies for everyone, but there are several copies there. I wanted to share a little bit about the leads that we get through our network partner, Team NEO. So in economic development, there are all kinds of development opportunities that happen. But one of the ones that I think is less obvious is the process that we get through the site selection firms. So site selection firms are engaged by typically larger corporations to help them evaluate sites throughout the world where they want to locate their business. So it's a very competitive process. And we get those leads through our network partner, Team NEO, and we collaborate with Lorain County to respond to those leads. But the packet of information I gave you is a number of leads we've received since April of this year. And I shared it with you because I wanted you to see the flavor of the types of activity in this sector of economic development that we're seeing. So it's typically large power users, large buildings, large acreage, sometimes with very specific requirements like, can't be located 3 miles near a residence, that kind of thing. But this is an area I think that is difficult as a legacy community for us to compete sometimes because we don't have a lot of greenfield space available. So this is something that I think moving forward we really want to get strategic about so that we can have a better chance at competing for some of these projects. Some of them, if you're looking for 200 acres of greenfield space, we probably don't have that in Elyria. But how can we be more competitive in that space? So we'll be looking at ways to see what we can do to be better prepared to respond to some of those leads. And I would be happy to answer any questions about those.
Any questions? I know we're just getting this tonight, but I would encourage, upon reading it, talk to Director Calvert with more information to that. Mayor Whitfield?
Just to build off of that, for one reason we thought it was important, just to get a glimpse of the type of inquiries we get. When we set out the vision to have create 2,025 jobs by 2025, we had a strategy around building a city for entrepreneurs, investing in our workforce and attracting folks to our workforce, and growing the companies in Elyria, keeping the companies in Elyria. One of the things that I've learned since I've been here is the importance of having sites ready. And I think we may have learned that lesson with Bendix, but I think overall, when we get these sort of emails, they're very specific. We need this much acreage, this access to water, this access to utilities. And, I don't think anybody's going to come save us. So I think we have to start to make investments in our infrastructure and start to clean up and prepare sites so that when we get these hits, we can say, yep, we got the acreage right here. Yep, we got the water and sewer right here. So, what we hope to be bringing to you all soon is, opportunities that we see within the city to either build infrastructure. We've talked about it with the Chestnut Commons and the east side, the sewer relief, the interceptor, so that area over there can get redeveloped. There's infrastructure needs on Leo Bullock's Parkway. And there's other spots in the city as well that once we build the infrastructure, when we get these sort of emails that say 2,000 jobs or 500 jobs, we can say, yep, we got a site ready for you. So we wanted you to kind of get a glimpse of what we see on a regular basis so that we can start to prepare ourselves as a city for it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So in saying all that, thank you, Mayor, for your comments in regards to that. Director Calvert, if you could just make some additional copies or email it, and we'll just kind of make sure that to the council clerk's office that we can get those necessary copies to everybody. Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, I just confirmed with Director Calvert that she would have this emailed to the clerk's office so that all of you will have it available.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Oswald, did you have another question?
Yeah, through you, Mr. President. Ms. Calvert. Okay, so this email comes across. What's the process? Does it go on the table here and just get piled up, or is there, I first do this, I contact back that person, help me out?
And real quick, before she answers, if you could also, Dawn, speak about the process that Team Neo takes with it, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. President. So typically we keep an inventory of the sites that we have available. And it is ever changing and it does need frequently updated. We share that with Lorain County. So Lorain County is the county-wide organization that's been designated to submit through a very specific software for those leads. So the leads are generated through Team Neo's relationships with site selectors, and then also any inquiries that they get through the Jobs Ohio network. So that's where they're generated at. They then get filtered down to the local level. And if there is a property, I look at the lead, I see if we have something that's going to fit that, and then I request that Lorain County then submits it through, it's called the Site Ohio database. So we add any additional information that we need to add, and then they submit it through there. Now, it is an incredibly competitive process. So we might be, I always say it works out to be a math equation, basically. So when the site selectors are evaluating this, it is, did you check the box? Did you answer yes or no? It goes into an Excel spreadsheet. They might be evaluating 50 sites. They might be evaluating 200 sites. So it is a very competitive process to get narrowed down to anything. And there are a number of criteria that may be in addition. When it comes down to picking the bottom line, there may be criteria that company has that's not even listed in that RFP that we get. But I hope I answered that. So.
Through you, Mr. President. So I guess it could be kind of overwhelming with as many pages as you just showed us, trying to keep up on it. And, I was just wondering in-house how you handled that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I will say there are a number of leads that come through, which quite frankly, we just don't have 100 contiguous acres available for redevelopment. So a lot of times, depending on the size of acreage or the size of building that they're looking for, we can rule them out pretty quickly.
Very good. Thank you for the information. Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Calvert? Thank you, Ms. Calvert. Mr. Williams, Assistant Safety Service Director Williams.
Good evening, Council. Through you, Mr. President, very briefly, just an update. First, thank you to President Stewart and Councilwoman Mitchell and Councilwoman Davis. A few months back, we had a meeting with Save Our Children, as we've been forging ahead trying to figure out a desirable outcome for Oakwood School. And we are moving forward. It looks like we may have some, we definitely have a possible prospect. And just to let you know, we are having meetings this week. We've received affirmation from the state of Ohio Department of Natural Resources that gives us the go-ahead to some of the things that we've been discussing in terms of the trail. It doesn't present a problem. They were very, very positive in terms of what the project is looking like now. And so we will have some definite information more clarifying on the next few weeks, I believe. We'll meet with Save Our Children. We're meeting with our building department and starting to get more specific things. And but again, we're really excited. We'll keep you guys updated, and we should have some definitive information on what the next steps would look like going forward. So we'll keep you guys abreast. President Stewart will remain critically involved in this, and so I think we have a very, very good positive outcome that will satisfy the concerns of council, and will be a good project for our seniors and for our youth going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So in regards to that, I don't know if that's the finish of your report, but there's been just been ongoing conversations in regards to Oakwood School. We're still working through a little bit of a process. Not everything has really been truly defined, but conversations have been had and opportunities that's still possibly there. So we're still working through that process. There's still a lot more work to go. So I think they're just trying to gather some more information before it gets back to a committee. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I'm glad to hear that there's been progress, because at least once every single week, I get calls from residents that they are sick of Oakwood School. They want it demolished, they want it gone. And I keep begging them to please be patient. We're trying to work through a process, but that process needs to happen sooner rather than later. So I appreciate the update, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
And also, we have installed a motion detector sensor inside the building. And so there's been some work, some cleanup in there, and then some additional efforts in terms of security. We appreciate the residents who've called in some reports. We actually were able to make an arrest of some students that were caught in the building. So the sooner we get all of this resolved, I think that that nuisance will go away also. So, but yes, thank you.
Mrs. Stewart. Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I just want to give out a shout to Carrie, Parks Director Reardon, Jay Horwidow. I walk the trail all the time, and there was a big hole in the trailer over there by Oakwood. I took a picture of it. I sent it to Director Reardon. She was on vacation. It was fixed the very next day. Mr. Horwidow went out and took care of it. So I just want to give them a shout out, and I appreciate their efforts.
Yes, they have been amazing. Thank you.
Is there anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, sir.
Is there any questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you. City Engineer, Ms. McKillips.
Good evening. I just wanted to update you on a couple projects very briefly. Street resurfacing. Our asphalt portion of our citywide street program is complete, except for the adjustments of the manhole and the catch basin castings. We're looking at having that started in about a month. Also, pavement striping does need to take place as well, but the actual milling and paving is complete on those streets that were included in the citywide program. We are currently out to bid right now on the concrete street contract, so we'll have a contractor here in about another week, and then we'll be able to get moving on that part of the citywide program. And then within 2 weeks, we'll be advertising for the crack sealing contract. For 2023, we didn't have one last year, so this year we budgeted a little bit more so we can put out a robust program to look at all the streets that we've resurfaced within the past 5 years and take care of the areas that we need to. The West Ave Water Main Improvement Project, that project is a little behind schedule. We're hoping to have it wrapped up by now, but they're still moving along, and we should have at least all the underground work, including all the water services, completed before school starts. And then following that, we will come through and do the resurfacing, which will unfortunately take place while school is in session, but we have OPWC funds to help pay for those, so we'll get that done as soon as we can. Our East Side Relief Sewer Project, the big chamber in front of Smitty's and the BP gas station, the actual chamber construction crew is on site, and they're actually working, putting in rebar and forms so that we can get that structure constructed. On Poplar Street, we have a restoration going on between Olive and Abbey Road, and we're hoping to have, if everything goes well, the paving contractor in mid-September to get that section resurfaced, at least through the intermediate course. I was talking with the chief before the meeting. We will be communicating the plans going forward with the restoration and communicating with the St. Jude's and the high school there as far as what's going to be closed, what's not, which entrances to use, and that information, as well as sending a flyer out to all the residents that will be affected, specifically on the restoration side, which is the east end of Poplar. The mayor brought up East Broad Street. That is in the works, as you can tell. The current lane closure will be in place for quite a while. So we're just asking that drivers please pay attention, drive carefully, especially when we have the work crews working right next to the lane that vehicles are driving on. It's for the safety of the workers, other motorists, pedestrians, and so forth. And that's all I have.
Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. President, off that particular subject, let's go back to railroads. Where are we at with the quiet zone?
The quiet zone, we are, and I have to check the date, but we are getting pretty close to the end of a 60-day comment period for all, for certain stakeholders being, police, fire, county, railroad, there's a few others. And I know that ends this month. Once we get that completed, then we'll be able to submit the remaining paperwork to the Federal Railroad Administration and get that quiet zone in place.
Thank you.
So we are probably a few months out, maybe a little more.
Been a long road to get, some signs up and horns turned off.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Engineer McKillis, on the citywide streets resurfacing, are we able to do any of the alternate streets?
I know we did, I believe, but I'm not sure which one. And we were waiting specifically for the concrete contract to get, to at least open up bids so we see what the cost is, and then we'll have an idea of what's remaining. But I thought there may have been one that made the asphalt list.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, so depending on what the concrete is, that determines how much money we have left and what we can do?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
When is that bid supposed to be opening? When are you opening it up? The concrete, when is those?
Next
due?
week.
Next week, okay. Mr. Callahan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stewart, through you. I know there was some work done today between 7 and 5, and partial of the road was closed at Stafford Drive today. And I was just curious if that work was completed, or does it need to be closed again tomorrow?
I believe it was completed today.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Ms. Simmons?
Through you, Mr. President, I'm kind of concerned with all the different streets construction going on when school starts back, especially West Avenue. I mean, we've got, school is starting here in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be horrendous. That's all I gotta say. It's gonna be horrendous because
well, the one thing
every which way you go, there's barrels and.
Through you, Mr. President, one of the things we've discussed internally is when the contractor actually, because the underground work should be complete by the time school starts. The paving portion will not. But one of the things we've talked about is seeing if the contractor is willing to hold off on beginning their work until after the morning school rush. That's just something we've discussed. We haven't discussed that with the contractor yet, but it was an idea to see if that will help.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Mayor Whitfield?
The other piece that we're also looking at, through you, Council President, to Councilwoman Simmons, the other thing we're looking at is with Cleveland Street, seeing if there's a way to space that out so that Broad Street, because we recognize it is kind of chaotic having both entryways. So we're going to be having a conversation with the contractor to see if we can move some of the schedule around so that these things kind of stagger a little bit better than having everything at once. So that's something we're looking into.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. McKillips. Mr. Farkas, Chief Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to bring council up to speed on some of our very large multi-million-dollar projects that are coming near close. The first is Elyria Hyundai in Leona. They've invested over $5 million in the reface. The Target is well underway. That is another about $4.5 million in reinvestment. That project is clicking quite along well. The Aldi store, they have actually prepped the foundation. They are getting ready to start construction. They should be moving along on that relatively quickly in hopes of tentatively end of this year, beginning of next for full completion, depending on materials. The Hospital UH, they are, again, multi-million interior renovations. They're going floor by floor and renovating. These investments is just a landmark of the actual improvements throughout the city. People want to stay, and they are actually going back to these structures and putting money back into the buildings, bringing them up to snuff. Stepping down, we are still dealing with a lot of subdivisions. We are still going full steam with the new homes in construction. We have a lot of upcoming projects. As many of you know, Valley of the Eagles is proposing a new subdivision that will be heard on Planning Commission, come up here soon. That'll produce about 223 homes if approved to move forward. Other than that, we have the new gentleman who is Kyle. He is our new property maintenance inspector. He's been here 30 days. He's working out quite well. Very bright young man. He has a good future ahead of him. So we're starting to plug him in on the property maintenance aspect. That's taking a lot of pressure off the two gentlemen we have now that are solely dedicated to that. So things are looking up. Other than that, that's all I have.
I have a question, Mr. Farkas. Two houses over on Abbey Road opposite the Constellation School, just kind of north of Poplar on the east side of the road. Looks like they've been kind of stalled with their construction. They're brand new construction homes.
Oh.
Can you give me an update on that?
That sounds like a Frank Amato home. He has multiple houses throughout the city. South Abbey, North Abbey is one of them. He has some on Warden. Typically, he gets them up into the framing stage. I don't know his game plan. If he runs out of money, comes back and then finishes a home. But yeah, I know the contractor you're speaking of.
And only because of that, because I see the tall grass is over there too. It's invading all that. So if we can kind of get on that, it's been sitting vacant for a while. Or stalled. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. I don't know if I had the number right in the appropriations, but I thought I seen $100,000 in the building department. Is that for the demolitions?
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Oswald, yes, that is for our demolition fund. The fund was originally submitted to council for $110,000 for demolition due to the amount of board ups that had been taking place in conjunction with police. We're basically taking charge of these structures to make sure they don't create any further nuisances. With that money being near depleted, I'm reaching back out to get the $100,000 within my budget, able to wiggle some things around to go after some specific homes. I won't be able to go after as many as I'd like, but I'm going to go after some homes that are far past due.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis.
Through you, Chair. Mr. Marcus, what is happening with the old Holiday Inn? You got all these nice projects coming up around, and this building and they're still breaking in it.
Well, Director Deary.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Mrs. Davis, we actually had a meeting last week, police, fire, safety service, building department, my office as well. Unfortunately, there's no easy, quick answer to your question. I can tell you that we are exploring all options. Safety service continues to be in contact with the owner, letting him know what is expected and how things are going to play out ultimately if they don't get their acts together. But as it is now, the building is secure. They are not attempting to operate a business out of it. And based upon that, from a legal standpoint, we don't have many options. So we are going to keep plugging along. We're going to keep monitoring the situation. Again, multifaceted front here. Whether that's, we are looking to explore it from a fire code front, obviously continue from a law enforcement front, also the building code front. And if we have to fight it on multiple fronts, that's what we're going to do. But it's not going to be a sprint. But that doesn't mean we're not going to keep at it.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Farkas? Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Community Development Director, Ms. Scott. Superintendent Wastewater, Mr. Corzan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few quick comments. First of all, about our employee, Jamie Collins, who recently passed. I just wanted to say he's a phenomenal person to be around, a real pleasure. You don't find, that caliber of person every day. Was very conscientious and dedicated to his job, and it's not very often that we find employees who can pick up plant operations as fast as he did. I mean, he just had a knack for absorbing that, and he did a really good job. So I just wanted to pass that along to council. And other things, we've had a really great summer weather-wise. The rains have kind of spared us this year. So we're getting a lot done. The sewer crew is just, blasting out miles of sewer getting cleaned and televised. So that's a good thing. A lot of catch basins getting torn out and repaired. Down the plant, a lot of projects going on there. The capital dollars are being spent very wisely. It's amazing how much we save the ratepayers by doing everything that we do in-house, not having to contract stuff out. Even the things that come up that we're not expecting, that add more projects to our list. But the crews and the teams are just handling everything very well. And I want to update council on the quarry issue. As you know, we submitted the operations and maintenance plan to EPA, and that's working very well. Between engineering, our sewer crews, our industrial pretreatment inspectors, and also residents who are calling in as well. Whenever we see someone over there in the quarry, we're notifying the Elyria Police Department, and they're doing a good job of rousting out the trespassers. Engineering's keeping their eye on the fencing and all that, so that's good. That's going very well. So
very good, very good. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President. So, nosy me, I had to see what's going on over on Loyola by Pepperdine in Antioch, I think it is, in between. And we have, is it a lift station, they're called? Where this thing is 25 foot deep. There's a pump in the bottom. And they have to get this thing replaced because, when it says on your little things, these are flushables. Well, they're not flushables, are they? Well, what happens is they get caught in these grinders, and then they get stuck, and then they have to go out and go down 25 feet, I would assume, and clean that all out. Well, they finally replaced it with what I was told was a better pump with better blades so that we don't have to keep getting called out. The guys were out there, they did a great job how they got it done. So I just wanted to commend them. Good group of guys all working together, and we got another situation hopefully taken care of for a little while. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. President, thank you very much. Yes, that's our Loyola Street lift station or pump station. There's 2 pumps down in there. They had to do a lot of work in there, not only just putting in the much better pumps, but also the guide rails that those pumps slide down on were all deteriorating. They had to replace the 90-degree elbow at the bottom for the pumps to connect to and all that. So there was a lot of work going on there, and that's I believe that's the fourth lift station out of 25 that we've redone this year. They're just banging them out and keeping things going. That doesn't mean you can flush them because they're still going to plug the check valves. They'll get through the pumps, but they'll plug the check valves and other things. Those wipes are not flushable. Even if they say they're flushable, they're not. They'll plug up our stations. They do stuff at the plant, but also for the homeowners, that small little 4-inch pipe that connects your house to the sewer out in the street. It's like you have one little rootlet in there, and they'll start snagging those wipes, and the next thing you know, you got 15, 20 of them, and they're going to plug you off. And then that's the homeowner's responsibility to call a contractor, shell out $200 to pull the wipes back out. So we try to do a lot of public outreach on that because we don't want the residents, paying out money just because they're flushing wipes. Wipes are great. They're great products. We use them at home too, but they go in the trash can. So pee, poop, and toilet paper, the 3 Ps. That's all it says.
We could all save our city a lot of money if we would just pay attention. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tolet, I hope you can follow that up.
That's hard to follow. Special kudos to Mrs. Stefik from your crew. They were working on Overbrook on my street, and she brought a problem that she noticed in the middle of the street to me. That was my issue, and she was professional with myself, all the neighbors. She was outstanding, and she saved giving us a heads up about a couple things about routes and lines that we're feeding. I can't say enough good things about her, so if you would let her know that how special and her team. So thank you.
Yes, sir, I will certainly do that. And Aaron Stefik, Chris Whirling, and Brandon Valley, there are 3 top go-getters on the sewer crew. They keep everything moving. They've got everything organized. And everybody on the crews they're excellent with the residents. And it's our goal to use the equipment that the ratepayers pay for to benefit the ratepayers. So if someone's having an issue and we need to use our TV camera to help them, we're going to do it. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corzine. Ms. Yusefi, Human Resources. Okay. I think that covers everybody. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, community development. Item number 2, community development. Item number 3, community development. Item number 4, community development. Item number 5, community development. Item number 6, finance. Item number 7, finance. Item number 8, finance. Item number 9, finance. Item number 10, finance. Item number 11, finance. Item number 12, finance. Item number 13, finance. Item number 14, finance. Item number 15, utilities. Item 16, utilities. Item 17, utilities. Item 18, utilities. That's it. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
We have a couple. John Fath, 283 Washington Avenue, in regards to abolishing ordinance for picking up junk on the curb.
Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
John L. Fath, Elyria, Ohio, on Washington Avenue, 283. I'm trying to address the law that's been on the books. I've been doing it for over 38 years, and me as just a small part of the scrappers, we're saving a lot of people going to all this stuff going to the landfill. Once in a while, somebody will have a rummage sale. Instead of taking it up to Salvation Army or taking it to Goodwill or giving to somebody that needs it rather than buying it, if they're going to throw it out, I take it up to Salvation Army or Goodwill. Some of the other scrappers help people out too. It's a handful of people that take stuff like that and scatter it, okay? I'm here today to try to get the law on the books abolished because I've been doing it for 38 years. And just me as a scrapper for 38 years, if that would have went to the landfill, not including all the rest of the scrappers, okay? Where if we're doing it, we won't get cited. It's the handful of people that's making it rough on us. So I'm not just here for myself, I'm here for all the other scrappers.
Okay.
This is all new to me, so as far as how to abolish it or make a suggestion to abolish it.
Well, what we can do is we'll follow with the Law Director, Safety Service Director's office to kind of have a conversation in regards to, your situation in particular and what we can do to kind of resolve the issue or some direction in that. Mr. Oswald, did you want to make a comment?
I just wanted to say that, yes, we contacted the police. We found out what the law was. We're going to talk to the law director, and then we're going to hash out some of the problems and see what we can do, if there's a way we can change things, but we will be looking into it.
Like I said,
Thanks for bringing it to the table.
Like say I pick up something and before I pick it up, okay, somebody comes by and scatters a pile. And one of Mr. Palco's officers come by and see that the pile's scattered and I got the stuff on my truck. I could get blamed for it with some of the officers for scattering, and here I didn't scatter. See what I'm saying? So it's more than just abolishing the issue. It's about, because Illyria's got great officials. You know what I mean? But I didn't know the process of doing this, because I've been doing it for so long. And I know the ordinance has been on the books for so long. It's just, now they're starting to change it, and all the scrappers want to know, including the scrapyard. They called in and they said, well, there's no ordinance that they enforce. And then they start enforcing it. No indication or nothing after all these years.
Well, very good. We appreciate you coming up, and we'll look into it. I think we'll have some dialogue between the law director's office, administration, police department. We'll just try to work through that, and then we'll keep you identified, notified of what's going on with it so that we can kind of make some headway into some resolution to it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Chief.
Terrence Woolfork, 900 Hunters Crossing, subject DEI Committee.
Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Terrence Woolfork, 900 Hunters Crossing Drive. Thank you for having me. Good evening. There is an old saying that I feel is very apt for the discussion we're engaged in this evening, which states, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." I say this not as an affront to the proponents of the DEI as a philosophy and a potential practice, but as a warning that we must be diligently prudent in how we proceed and guide our actions and decisions. For it is far too tempting to let our high-minded ideals cloud our judgment and guide our decisions. As in my career as a fitness trainer, I have seen it happen all too often that people not having the proper knowledge end up getting others hurt because of bad advice. You may want to help in the best way possible, but that isn't enough. Knowledge of the facts of the matter must be the guiding factor in human affairs, otherwise more harm than good can indeed be the result of despite the impact that you mean to have. Notice I said facts, not theories, not assumptions of how things work or how we wish they worked. Please consider the importance of moving the discussion from subject focus to object. Though personal perspectives can be helpful on some level of input, but it has its limitations, and that ought to be pointed out. And considering the scale of the topic at hand, certainly more of the objective ought to be what is put into the light. The subjective viewpoint certainly has a time and a place, but let us try to keep it within its justified bounds. Inherent in the philosophy is the belief that America is systematically and fundamentally racist, and it is said that the primary causal factor producing the suffering and disparities that we see today. The old American slave trade and its residue are said to be the proof of this mechanism at work in our culture. Yet, throughout human history, slavery has existed across peoples as the standard and the norm. The idea that slavery is the proof of the flaws of the American experiment is to utterly disregard and sweep under the rug of the strides it has made in bringing about basic human dignity and equality to all since it was abolished. In our Constitution, ideals such as this one are enshrined, which have been a boon and a great leap forward for those of mankind when you consider the bigger picture. And this is a fact. So, of course, not perfect as nothing ever is. In the American way, hitherto, especially since the Civil Rights Movement, has been the land of the greatest opportunity for social and economic advancement for those willing to work for, in which it is true if one looks at things honestly and objectively. Our capitalistic system is responsible for lifting more people out of poverty than any other economic system has throughout human history. If this was not the case, why would it be the coveted place millions the world over have been migrating to? I don't find it tenable that one can hold the view that America is such a wicked place to live while simultaneously having people who are willing to risk their lives to be here in this country. It is clearly one or the other. I understand the aspirations of ideals of DEI as an overarching concept which aims to ultimately outright eliminate disparities among groups based upon several factors such as economic standing, gender, but primarily race. However, it is predicated upon certain assumptions that I find to be untenable considering certain facts which lead to a different understanding and outlook, such as America being an inherently racist country where the division of classes and therefore perspectives is to be understood and found through the lens of the social, racial power dynamics at play, fundamentally according to the theory in which DEI I know is based. The obvious flaw in this assumption...
Mr. Wolfork, if I could interrupt you, I just needed, we're beyond our 3 minutes. I needed someone to waive council rules to go ahead and continue on. So can I get a motion to head?
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed nay. Carry on, please.
Thank you. The obvious flaw in this assumption is that within the racial groups themselves, there are disparities of income and perhaps outcome. So simply, it cannot be the case. Race is the guiding factor driving these distinctions amongst individuals. Plenty of unfortunate, poor, uneducated white people, as there are within any other ethnic group. DEI, if practiced, goes against the 14th Amendment because one definition of discrimination is the recognition and understanding of the difference between one thing and another. The fixation on what makes us different and not the same, i.e. Americans, is something that I fear will bring about the opposite effect as it relates to your original intention. Diversity, which focuses on race, or any other dividing line for that matter, has the consequence of alienation and thusly strife. Where there is unity and solidarity, you will have harmony and thus peace. So instead of focusing on differences which can only serve to disrupt social relations, we ought to focus on a much wider conceptualization of identity, this being American, or if you like, an even more all-embracing concept of our identity, which is true, is that of our humanity. Racial fixation is superficial and not at all helpful. As not a black man, but as a man who happens to be black, my needs, aspirations, desires, passions can and often are far different from those I simply share skin color with. If you were to ask me, I, according to your philosophy, am not in the category of having much privilege, but if you were to ask me personally, I would say that I am very privileged. One way in which I know I am privileged is through the simple fact that I can be here today expressing my voice in an open manner in this day and age where in many places in the world you simply cannot without suffering some type of negative consequences. I am free to be who I am, and that is not a privilege to be understated. And as an American, I am grateful for this and so much more. For these reasons and more I don't have time to get into, I, Terrence Woolfolk Jr., a member and citizen of the City of Illyria's 3rd Ward, humbly ask my council member, Mickey Corbin, to vote no in the formation of the DEI committee.
Thank you, Mr. Woolfolk, for coming up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We don't have to print what you.
I'll hold on to this for now.
Okay, if you like, you can email me.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
That's all the petitions from the lobby?
I know Miss Monet Roberts was here from Elyria Community Partnership. She did come in, sign up late. If you want to come up Monday and just kind of give us an update of what's going on with the Elyria Community Partnership. I believe everyone has a copy of this maybe out there in front of them there.
Hello, 200 Middle is our presiding business space right now. But yes, I will be very brief just because I know you guys have enough on the agenda. Just wanted to come in and say thank you guys for all the effort. I know I've seen a few of you at some of our events. And just to update you all, we have been revamping the farmers market. A lot of our efforts are going to be going towards next year just because of the season. But we're super excited for what's happening. As Mayor Whitfield said, rain better not come on August 17th. We hope to be outside, but we have really been making a way inside and making sure we're still enjoying ourselves. One of the things I did want to highlight for you all, though, we are having our very first fundraising tour this September, and I would love for each of the city council members to be engaged in that. That's going to be downtown. We're going to explore some buildings and inviting all the residents as well, exploring some of the buildings, exploring where Elyria is, the history of it, and where Elyria is going. There's a lot of exciting changes happening, and we're just super excited to be at the cusp of all of this. And we have been working on our vibrancy action plan. So if there are any questions, I can keep talking for days about how much I love this organization, but I know you guys are busy, and I did send this out to you in advance. So if you all have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Roberts at this time? If not, then we can follow up with you through either an email or a phone call, I'm sure. We probably need to have the third Thursday on a golf course. It never rains on a golf course.
Next year, let's think about it.
Very good. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
We have considered the matter of a liquor license transfer from Aldi, number 59, 426 Oberlin Road, Carlisle Township, to Aldi, number 59, 38275 Chestnut Ridge Road, Elyria, and the city of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move this committee report be passed on its first reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Committee report 2023-5. We have considered the matter of a new liquor license permit requested by Hubert Oliver Legacy 34 LLC located at 460 Cleveland Street, Elyria, and the city of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move this committee report be passed on its first reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Committee report 2023-6. That's all the committee reports.
Resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance, a resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent, inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-22. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolution second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinance's first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development and Finance, an ordinance establishing the City of Elyria Diversity and Equity and Inclusion, DEI Committee.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second. Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Nope. We have a Mr. Corbin.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you. I had no idea that a member of my ward was going to speak on behalf of this. I hope that I can do as eloquently a job as the gentleman did before me. Before we vote today on creating a diversity, inclusion, and equity committee, we should examine the foundations of this committee. It is based on the assumption that America is a systemically racist institution. In the words of Ms. Yosefi, our HR director, systemic racism exists everywhere. The key word here is not racist. We know that there are racial tensions along with gender, age, and other tensions. That is the case for relatively every country in the world. The big question here is, are these tensions systemic? That's a complaint which can either be substantiated or unsubstantiated. Let's look at the facts. Thanks to our founding fathers striving to form a more perfect union, a mechanism was built into our government to correct for imperfections, amendments to the Constitution, and we used them. First, slavery was abolished in our country. Ending that inhumane practice in America took 618,000 lives, or approximately 1 million gallons of blood shed to bring liberty to our black brothers and sisters, or as Puritans at the time beautifully called them, God's image in ebony. Second, my generation, linked together with our black brothers and sisters, helped end Jim Crow segregation, culminating with Brown v. Board of Education, which ended racial segregation in U.S. schools. At last, our society no longer saw race. It saw humanity. Our republic triumphed. Equality became, as today's generation would say, a thing. DEI, by contrast, is divisive. It seeks to distribute us along racial lines and can lead to consideration for jobs based on disproportionality rather than qualifications. This appeals to our emotions rather than our reason and to our own detriment. The truth is, we are all one race, the human race. To forget this is to operate with a color basis. I would argue that everything is wrong with Americans through the lens of a system. This follows a particular bias called the law of instrument, a cognitive bias that states simply, when you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. This views every problem in America as systemic and asks us today to support that by establishing this committee. I can't substantiate this claim. I cannot vote yes on this committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Mr. Tolet.
As a further comment, potentially to counter that, why I will vote for it is in our country, we have a governor right now that explained to his population that during the time of slavery, that they were learning life skills. And that's how it would be taught in the schools in his state. It's embarrassing. And so I will support diversity, equity, and inclusion in this council. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any other further discussion? Question has been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
One nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-108.
What was that number, 28?
108.
Oh, 108, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, we did a lot more work than that.
You've missed a few meetings.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as zoning ordinance to rezone certain real property located at 615 Foster Avenue, Elyria, Ohio, from R-MD Residential Medium District to R-MHL Residential Multi-Household Low Density District.
I declare this ordinance has had its first reading. Public hearing is scheduled for September 5th, 2023, 6 p.m.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2023-34, known as the 2023 Permanent Appropriations Ordinance, to change funds in various accounts.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Mr. Snare. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-109. Sponsored by Strategic Planning. An ordinance to redivide the city of Elyria, Ohio into 7 wards in accordance with the 2020 federal census and pursuant to section 3.03 of the Elyria City Charter.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Questions have been called. I know we have someone over, Mr. Johnson, who is a part of this to study. I don't know if he's just here. Ms. Scott, okay. Is there any further discussion? Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-110. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply to the state of Ohio for Round 38 grant and/or loan funding administered by the Ohio Public Works Commission for repair, reconstruction, and resurfacing of certain roads in the city of Elyria, authorizing and the acceptance of said grant and/or loan if offered, providing local funds as necessary to complete said projects, and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-111. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance amending the rural Lorraine County Water Authority Water Supply Agreement, which provides water services in the Chestnut Commons Commerce Park area to reflect deferred rate and tap fees effective July 1st, 2023, and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-112. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with a pre-qualified engineering consultant for the construction management and inspection service for the LOR-CR 658-0.00 Cleveland Street project, and declare emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms.
Simmons.
Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any further discussion
Question?
on the suspension? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-113. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a change order number 1 with the Carvo Companies, Inc. for the Cleveland Street LOR-658-0.00 project.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis, sorry. Got this barrier right here. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-114. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a change order number 1 with Fabrizi Trucking and Paving Company, Inc. for the East Broad Street LOR-623-0.00 project.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Simmons. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-115.
I don't see it.
Okay. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with ODOT for the I-90 project and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those, excuse me, point of order, that was my fault. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-116. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 8/28 at 6 p.m. Items referred. Joint CD Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 8/28, immediately following the Community Development. Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 8/28, immediately following the joint meeting. Utility Safety Environment requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 8/9, beginning at 6 p.m. Items referred. And Strategic Planning requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Tuesday, 9/5, immediately following council.
Good. Miscellaneous unfinished business. Okay. We will go into recess, and can I get a motion to go into strategic planning? Moved by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. Schneider.
Question?
Okay, we're gonna go into, strategic planning. Item number 2, we'll kind of do that one first as a matter of a skill up of our city initiative. In speaking with the mayor a little bit earlier, he and the finance director met today, and they're gonna have a little bit more work and kind of, research and kind of comparing with other cities and just trying to finalize what they're up against and the challenges that they're facing, and kind of getting that more information to this body. So we're going to remove that from tonight's item. The second one is the matter of passing a resolution in opposition to issue 1 on August 8th, which is tomorrow, for a special election ballot. Mayor Whitfield, this is referred to you by you, so I'll let you take the floor on that.
Thank you, Council President. And again, the special election is tomorrow, August 8th, and we want to encourage all our residents to get out and vote. The reason why I thought it was important for us to make a stance against issue 1 is because, you know, I think what we stand for on a local level is making sure our residents have the power. And I think, you know, Councilman Corbin just mentioned a second ago around the power to amend the Constitution and how throughout history the people have had that power. And what we see right now, in my opinion, is a power grab amongst this legislature. It proposes raising the bar so high that the voices of the people will be drowned out, shifting the balance of power towards a legislator that has been plagued with problems, a legislator that has been recently convicted of corruption, demonstrated a willingness to be controlled by special interests, and is also operating with the district map that has been gerrymandered and ruled unconstitutional by the Ohio Supreme Court. So I know there's been a lot of conversation trying to make this issue tomorrow about abortion and women's reproductive rights, but we want to make it clear, and I thought it was important that we make it clear together as a group that a no on issue 1 isn't saying yes to abortion. These are two separate issues. Issue 1 is about preserving the power and the integrity of our democracy and our democratic process to safeguard majority rule, one person, one vote, and that being done in the sacred chamber of the voting booth without fear of retribution. So we stand with individuals on both sides of the aisle. The past 4 governors, both Kasich and Taft, who are Republicans, are against this, and the past 2 former Democratic governors, Governor Strickland and Governor Celeste, are also against this issue. So I thought it was important for us to encourage our residents to maintain their power in this democracy. You can vote how you want to vote in November or whenever the future issues come up, but just to maintain our power and not give it up, I thought it was important for us to stand together on that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tolet, did you want to weigh in?
Quick history lesson. The last Ohio Constitutional Convention took place in 1912. Teddy Roosevelt got together with the Republicans then and came up with this plan to give the power back to the people. And the Democrats got on board with it at that time, and it passed overwhelmingly to make it 50% plus 1. That was the rule of law that stood for 112 years. I 100% agree with the mayor that my personal opinion is to vote no on issue 1. You have the control. We don't have the control. So in saying that, because in 1912 that was the problem, the politicians and corporations at that time had the power to dictate of laws that were set. Teddy Roosevelt fought against that. He brought in antitrust legislation to protect corporations. He brought several laws during his 2 previous terms as president before that. So when I thought about us doing this as a council tonight, could we, by voting on this as a resolution, could we be part of the problem? Are we taking that decision away from the people? So as much as I agree with the mayor and his stance against issue 1, if we join together as a municipal body, I disagree with that based on the elected politicians dictating a stance on a public election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolet. Does anybody else want to weigh in on what's before us in regards to the resolution? Or any further discussion in regards to it? Mayor Whitfield?
Yeah, and I think when we had our discussion earlier, I think we came to the similar conclusion that even if we didn't pass a resolution, we thought it was important to give people an opportunity to share where they stand. I think I was convinced by Councilman Tolet of the sentiment of actually passing a resolution. But I did think it was important for folks because people are wondering, they're hearing the sound bites, they're seeing things and wondering, what does this mean? And I thought it was important for the folks that they've elected and trusted to give their views so that they know where we stand on this. So that was the purpose of tonight's piece.
No, I think it's a valid point and everything with what's been brought up here before it. And if I warranted anybody else who wanted to weigh in on to make a conversation in regards to what's before us here tonight, so it's a resolution. Davis, did you want to say something? Okay. Okay, so with that being said, no one else is going to make any comments in regards to it, so the most important thing is tomorrow to get out and vote. And this is what it's all about. These are elections to make a change, to make a difference in where it's at over and through there. So we hope that you do that. I know early voting is more convenient for everybody, but tomorrow is election day. That's generally when I go and vote, so I like that. I will be voting no as well, so. Very good. So at that point, we'll come out of, can I get a motion to come out of strategic planning?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah.
Second.
Second by Ms. Simmons.
Question.
Question. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Can I get a motion to go out of adjournment for the full council?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Mitchell. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.